1600.
WWRL.
New York.
An Access One communications radio station.
Welcome back. This is Dr. Fritz Collette, and we are coming to you live from the studios of WWRL here in New York City. We are streaming on the internet at WWRL1600.com. And this is a live show that we do every Thursday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in New York City. The phone lines are open. If you want to join in the conversation, 212-868-0975. Again, 212-868-0975. And I'm here with my co-host, Melissa Nicoletti.
Hi.
Hello, Melissa. Welcome back.
We've had quite a week.
We have had quite the last 2 weeks.
It's a mess.
Absolutely. I mean, can you enumerate the number of ways things have changed or occurred in the last 2 weeks from hurricane?
All I keep hearing from everybody is that God hates us. They just say, what? Why?
What next?
What next?
Down to the blizzard we had at the beginning of November yesterday.
It's just not fair. I'm not ready for winter. I'm not ready for any of this. And I know I sound kind of spoiled saying that. But I'm not into it. I'm not having it. I'm good. I'm full with the weather.
Well, better days are coming. Winter has not begun yet.
I know. That's a little scary. I'm real worried about the people that don't have heat, don't have power. I don't even know what to do. You don't even know. It's such a big problem. You don't know where to start first as far as helping and getting people help.
If you're just tuning in for the first time, this is the Dr. Fritz Show, and this is a show that we do every Thursday nights here at WWRL. It's a show hosted by myself and Melissa. I'm a licensed psychologist practicing in New York State. And Melissa is my witty and very intelligent assistant. No, more than that, co-host, who helps me out in every episode. And she's also the producer of the show. Yes, you are, Melissa.
Yes, I'm in charge of all this.
And what we do is we try to bring you information, people, and practices to help you live a better life. And these are trying times. This is a difficult time in New York City. This is a difficult time in a lot of places. So we hope during this hour we can bring you some information that can really help out. And we've got, as usual, some pretty impactful guests who are going to talk about what they do in the context of what they do. But I think before we jump into the topic, Melissa, what do we got?
Well, what, tonight or just in what?
Just
for the
in
week?
general, some shout-outs or some
Yeah, some
announcements.
shout-outs. We have a lot of community outreach we're doing on behalf of WWRL 1600 and on behalf of the show.
Right.
Tomorrow night is a comedy show fundraiser. If you think you didn't have something to laugh about, you actually do. Come out, share a laugh with us. We are at Saloon on the Upper East Side. That's York Avenue between 83rd and 84th. The proceeds at the door are going to Hurricane Sandy relief in areas like Garrettson Beach and Brooklyn, where people have lost their homes, lost power, lost heat. Saloon, right after that, is having a big dance party, also donating. They're a huge donation spot for the Rockaways, for Breezy Point, for places that have just been devastated and forgotten. So we've got that. If you want more information about the comedy show, go to salooncomedy.com. That's tomorrow night at 7 o'clock on the Upper East Side. And right after that, we will be in the studio at 10 o'clock right back here, doing a live show outreach for the community with Senator Marty Golden. Yay! Yeah. Who is, these are his people. He'll be talking about Brooklyn. He'll be talking about the impact of Hurricane Sandy and how you can help. If you want, hey, what do we do this weekend to go help these people? He knows how. He has been on the scene. He is much beloved in that area. Garrettson Beach, Coney Island, Brighton Beach, Sheepshead Bay, and he's been reelected, so he's in charge.
Okay. And the other shout-outs.
We've got a lot of people actually who are ready to call in and talk about
That's right.
the ways in which they are volunteering.
I mean, the phone lines lit up last week when we just started saying, if you've
Exactly.
if you need help or if you know of a relief effort that's going on out there and you know the contact information, we'll talk about it. We'll use
that plumber from China.
Yeah.
He's coming back from China. He says, there's not a lot of work out here, but you guys could use me. I'm going to come back and volunteer my services.
And people have told me, written to me, called me. They said there will be a lot of need for his services. And there's a lot. If you have a special gift or skill or trade, definitely. Hey, I was out of power for about 7 days. That was the worst of it for me. But the radio was the thing that allowed me to receive information about what was happening in the world. And so coming back into the studio here last week, realized that we really need to use this platform to help get good information to people.
Yes,
So
we need, and I'm told we need electricians and plumbers because Con Edison, these places aren't turning people's electricity back on until
carpentry.
But until they're not turning the power back on until somebody has certified that yes, it's safe to do that. So 212-868-0975. We will be here for the hour. We want to hear from you. We will be here tomorrow night, also 10 o'clock. We want to hear from you. We will connect you with people who need your help.
Thank you, WWRL. Maybe in a few months, Melissa will have us on 5 nights a week.
We actually have Patty Tubbs, a man on the scene, who will be reporting
to us on what's going
on to let us know
on
about
in Garrettson.
Garrettson and Breezy and everywhere else that has been basically forgotten by mainstream media. And as Manhattan is repaired and the trains are running, look, it looks kind of normal. People are going to parties again. These are people that are still without homes and power and may not get this for a very long time. So we want to stay in touch with them. After the initial impact of the hurricane is over, what do you do each week to go back and make sure they're getting what they need? It's not a weekend project.
Okay, so let's jump into the topic. This is the third of a 7-part series that is being sponsored by Emblem Health.
Yay, Emblem Health.
And so during this third hour, but let me first recap the first two. During the first episode, we had as our special guest Gregory Johnson, who is the creator of the Emblem Health Care for the Family Giving program. And he came on, and he's very passionate and very, very committed individual. And he came on and he helped us define what caregiving is. And it's very important if we're doing a series here, we first must define it. Talk about what...
How do you know if you're a family caregiver?
Exactly. And a family caregiver, we did define, was an unpaid non-professional who cares for a loved one or a friend. Someone who shows up to help and
goes to get groceries.
And does everything.
And I would say now everyone in New York is pretty much a family caregiver. You've selected someone to donate to. You're doing gas runs. One of our callers is doing gas runs to people in outer boroughs.
And so many people get such a good feeling on caring for others and doing for others. And what we also talked about is how family caregivers are the backbone of the healthcare system. Without the family caregivers doing their part, the whole system would fall apart. Now, there's 1 in 3 Americans usually have to go home or are 24/7 having to worry about a loved one that they care about. That's 65 million Americans. And so we know a lot of you are out there are caring for somebody, and that's why Emblem Health is sponsoring this series, because the information that we have here and the guests that we're bringing to you really could help you out in terms of helping you with what you're doing.
I couldn't say it better myself.
Well, there you go. And so in the second part, this is the third part, in the second part we had Sheila Warnock, who's the author of the book.
Share the Care.
There we go.
Share the Care. And we'll have one available tonight for someone who calls in. We will give away a copy of this book. It's an amazing book that helps you. If you are suddenly finding yourself in the position of being a family caregiver, it can be kind of overwhelming. You think you're the only person that can do this work. Oh, it's your mother, and you're the only one, or it's your friend. You're taking it all on yourself. She's found a way to get a group together. And by sharing the care, it doesn't burden one person. Everybody gets to help, gets to participate, and the care gets given.
Right, and caring for someone is people often treat it as like a very private and very secretive event, but actually when you do let other people know what's going on with you, I think what I liked about Sheila's book is that it gave you the to-dos. It gave you what you can ask for in terms of help from other people. And a lot of times the questions that I get as someone who helps my mother care for my father is, how can I help? What can I do? And what was crucial about that book for me is it actually gave me some of the answers that I can tell some of my friends.
Like a workbook.
Exactly.
It's absolutely step-by-step instructions, how to put a group together to provide care.
Right.
And I think that's the first thing you do when you
what
find out,
do.
what do I do?
What do I do?
This is too much.
And of course, during that last episode, we also had Dr. Robin Finley on, who also talked about what the government can do in terms of help and in terms of information.
And how amazing was that? You just, call the government. They'll help you. What? Yes, call 311. And she says, yep, we pick up the phone and we will tell you how to get help.
So this is part 3, maintaining the emotional.
The emotional. And I can't think of a better time for this episode. In the aftermath of probably the hugest national disaster New York has seen for some time.
Right.
Maintaining the emotional.
And we're getting on to 2 weeks since the storm. I think Monday would be 2 weeks since the height of the storm. And for a lot of us, maintaining the emotional in the long term. One of the things I'm concerned about as a psychologist is a lot of attention being given to the relief efforts now. But, we're going to be talking about how do you maintain the emotional energy to get through this?
Especially when you've been living with your relatives.
With the lights out.
With the lights out. 8 marshmallows over one sterno. No.
No. All right, so let's bring in our special guest for tonight. Melissa, take it away.
Our guest on the air with us is Catherine Thurston. She is the Senior Director for Programs and Services at Advocacy for Gay, Lesbian, Bisexual, and Transgender Elders. This agency is known as SAGE, and she oversees all the social services and community-based programming. Catherine, are you with us?
I am.
Hi, Catherine.
So, yeah, Catherine, we even applause for you.
Thank you.
So Catherine, talk to us a little bit about what is SAGE. What is SAGE's role in the community?
So SAGE is the nation's oldest and largest organization devoted to improving the lives of LGBT older folks. We've been around for 34 years, and we were established in New York City, and we've grown in that time to become a national organization with 24 affiliates. But a lot of the direct service work that we do, helping LGBT older people and the people who care and love them, is in New York City.
So, okay, so your focus is on LGBT elders, and why LGBT elders as opposed to just elder care? Right.
Well, there's a variety of reasons why, but some of the for tonight's conversation, some of the things that are important to consider is that for LGBT older people, they're 4 times as likely to be living without adult children in their lives than their straight cohort. And adult children are really the number one source of family caregiving, of unpaid caregiving support in the United States. So that's a serious blow to the LGBT community that they don't have that kind of, built-in family support. They're also twice as likely to be living alone, to be aging alone, than their straight counterparts. And I think we all know that there are a lot of older adults, gay and straight, in New York City that are aging alone, but it's far more prevalent in the LGBT community. So they're more isolated, and they're less likely to have biological family in their lives to help in their caregiving.
So in talking about your work with this organization, I know that your career was spent at one of the nation's first geriatric mobile mental health programs.
Yeah.
What is that?
Well, that was many years ago, but I've been a geriatric social worker for about 25 years. Mm-hmm. And my first position, I worked at an organization that provided homebound elderly with psychotherapy, weekly psychotherapy in the home, which was really unheard of at that time, and it was an amazing organization. And after that, I worked for a long time, about 10 years, in the long-term care system, working with patients with Alzheimer's disease. And about 8 years ago, I had the opportunity to move to SAGE, which was really fantastic. And I think for a lot of people, the idea of gay people getting old doesn't really register. They think, I have a lot of gay friends, but I never really thought about what that might be like when they get old. And how is that, as you say, Melissa, how is that different? And why do LGBT people experience getting old differently than straight older adults? And it's been really a fantastic experience over the last 8 years to learn more about, I gave you some statistics that are sort of grim, but there's also a lot of amazing resilience among LGBT older
We talk
people.
about resilience a lot on this show.
Do you? Well,
yes,
it really is very, very true in our community. And, another thing that I think is very important tonight when we talk about caregiving and the LGBT community is that for many of us, when you think about helping to take care of each other and taking care of our own, the first thing that we think of is, what people did at the advent of the AIDS crisis, how people became families of choice, right? Or as I like to say, this is not me, this is Armistead Maupin's quote, but logical families as opposed to biological families, right? And that we were, like Sheila and her Share the Care model, people were forced in the LGBT community to rely on their neighbors, to rely on ex-partners, to rely on their friends.
And what the Share the Care book is about helping people logically assemble a family versus regular people being kind of born into that system.
That's exactly right. I think, when Sheila and I first met, I told her that a lot of the national communities that I meet with when I present to LGBT folks across the country have adapted Share the Care. And I even went to a conference several years ago where there was a symposium called Queering Share the Care. So intentional lesbian communities around the country have taken the model, and really it's such a natural fit for a community of people who've learned how to take care of each other in that way.
As far as a call to action, how in the wake of Hurricane Sandy has your agency been been activated. What have you guys been doing?
Yeah, we were very lucky in that even though we're located very close to WWRL studios, we did not lose power, and our office building was open. Sage's main offices are located on 7th Avenue and 27th Street, and so we were able to open up. The other thing about Sage is that in March of this year, we opened the nation's first LGBT senior center, the first municipally funded senior center in the country to be specifically focused on LGBT older folks. And in that center, which is open every day but Sunday, we serve a meal. So we were able to be open. We had heat, we had light. People came to charge their cell phones. People came to have dinner. And it was really extraordinary to be able to help. But Sage also has a very, very long history of providing social services to the community. And we have a wonderful social service department with professional social workers, and they really were unbelievable. They were dispatched all over the city. We have a lot of folks who are homebound, a lot of folks who lost power, as you can imagine. Many of our clients live in the West Village. We had social workers knocking on doors, going up steps, through word of mouth, hearing that we haven't heard from this one or that one, delivering blankets. And, Sage is not a crisis organization. We don't generally operate in this way. The fact that our staff was able to immediately get what they needed to do and go out and help people was really fantastic. I live in Brooklyn. I couldn't come to work. I was hearing about all of this over the phone and over the internet, and it was really extraordinary.
That's what I love about this partnership with Emblem Health. They're all doing a lot of community outreach.
Reaching out.
Yes.
And a lot of good people in the mix here. This is Dr. Fritz Collette, and again, this is a live show, so if you want to join in the conversation, have a question or a contribution to this conversation, please give us a call, 212-868-0975. Again, 212-868-0975. If you want to find out more about what we do here, go to our website, thedrfritzshow.com. We'll get you information about what we do, as well as prior and future podcasts, and this show that we're doing for you tonight. We'll be right back. And we're back. This is Dr. Fritz Collette, again coming to you live from the studios of WWRL here in New York City. Hey, if you want to reach us and you don't have internet, a lot of people are still without internet, and some people are without power, you can always give us a call when we're on the air, of course, 212-868-0975. And also you can give me a call, 646-265-2274, 646-265-2274. During our short break, I was conversing with Melissa.
As we do.
That's what we do during that break. That break is not just for you; it's for us to, calibrate and go right into it. And
we're talking about you.
Yes, and we've been talking about Sandy and how this is a great time for us to be talking about caregiving. We are all caregivers, and this is the circle of community and life that we have here in the city right now. And there's a lot of good feelings that are going around. People are going around and helping
we were
people.
talking about the breakdown of civilization in 3 days.
Yes.
And then you see the best of people and the worst of people. We're talking, if you're just tuning in, to Catherine Thurston, Senior Director of Programs and Services and Advocacy for Gay, Lesbian, Bisexual, and Transgender Elders. This agency is known as SAGE. We are talking about the outreach that they do and talking about why, specifically, they exist to serve LGBT elders, that the needs are different. And we're talking about what they got to do during the hurricane. We also have with us in the studio Reverend Robert Chase. Bob.
Welcome.
Welcome. From Intersections International. Maybe you want to tell us about Intersections International.
Well, first, let me just say thanks for having me here. This is great to be here with you guys. So Intersections is a 5-year-old not-for-profit organization. It is a permanent initiative of the Collegiate Church of New York, which is more than 5 years old. In fact, is the oldest corporation in North America. The Collegiate Church dates back to 1628.
The oldest corporation in North America.
In all of North America, yes,
That's
ma'am.
Amazing.
And with continued service in the city of New York. In fact, it was here before it was the city of New York, back when it was New Amsterdam. So Intersections seeks to bring people together who differ, to honor those differences, and then to forge common ground for justice, reconciliation, and peace. We do our work both locally and we do our work globally. And the way we do that work primarily is to invite disparate and sometimes surprising voices to a common table to seek innovative solutions to some of the world's most pressing problems, and then to develop programs and engagements that heal communities over time. And so one of the reasons that I was invited here specifically, and it's particularly kind of prescient that I'm here on this particular evening, given the fallout from Hurricane Sandy, is because of the work that we do with returning U.S. veterans. And that work is focused primarily around what we call our veteran-civilian dialogues. And it operates from the premise that veterans and civilians have very few venues anywhere where they can tell their stories to one another. So that if someone is returning from a conflict zone, veterans tend to, you were talking earlier about logical families. Well, one of the most logical families is what happens in the military, is that your buddies are your,
they become your brothers,
they become your families, your brothers and sisters in service. And so when you come back and re-enter civilian life, the question is, well, how do I re-engage family, friends, coworkers, fellow students who have not had this very, very traumatic, intense life and death experience? So what we do in our veteran-civilian dialogues is we bring together equal numbers of veterans and civilians and honor the stories of both, with the premise that veterans have something to offer civilians in terms of their healing, and civilians have something to offer veterans in terms of their healing. And we do that as we investigate or explore or discuss how war impacts us all. So post-traumatic stress, of course, we know about that. We read about that all the time, and that is something that affects many of our returning veterans. Not all of them, and I think it's important to not stereotype returning vets either. Some of the vets come back and they've really grown because of their military experience, but some come back wounded.
And it's interesting. I know a lot of them that come back from their service and then join a first responder unit.
Absolutely.
They become cops or firemen.
Absolutely, because that kind of adrenaline rush as being first responders or being in a position where they're in conflict of sorts has become part of what they do and what their identity is. So in the aftermath of Hurricane Sandy, it seems to me, as I have been about the city and engaged with people, that really the whole city, in a sense, has experienced the kind of post-traumatic stress. And it's as we reach out to one another, we become the caregivers for the others, that there's a great overlap in terms of what we do with our veteran-civilian dialogues and what we're experiencing day to day on the streets of Manhattan or Brooklyn or what have you.
Absolutely. And being able to offer things. I saw signs where people were offering little charging stations. We have power here. You can plug in. Finding that common ground. And again, Catherine, you were saying, you're finding elderly people in their homes. They've got no power. Well, that means they've got no water. That means they've got no food. And being able to do that outreach and cross the cultural divides just to help somebody, I think it's extremely rewarding, for those who get to do it and the people that receive it, just being able to say, yes, I needed that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, one of the things we also, we encountered as we went out and looked for our clients, we encountered other older adults who were not necessarily SAGE clients or LGBT identified, but were neighbors of or in the buildings of the people we were looking to help, and we helped them as well. I mean, these are times where, as you say, there are no clubs, there are no rules. We help who walks in front of us on the path. And I think that's something that I was extremely pleased to hear about, that we helped whomever we came across.
One of the things that's also happening right now is that we're approaching Veterans Day, and this is I think a particularly poignant moment for that. Melissa, you were saying again at the break how people in Breezy Point and Far Rockaway were relieved to see some of the National Guard come and others who are in uniform come, and it is a kind of a reassuring presence. It is a way to say thank you, to honor those who have served, sometimes at great sacrifice for all of us. And we're engaged right now in having a veteran-civilian dialogue. We actually have one at our place in Intersections, which is located on 5th Avenue between 29th and 30th Street. And you can go and find out about this on our website, intersectionsinternational.org. And on Monday night, the 12th, this coming Monday night, we're having a dialogue, and that dialogue is focused particularly and very poignantly, and it's because of the safe space that we've kind of created at Intersections, it's focused on suicide. And it's really a tragic kind of reality in our society that a U.S. veteran commits suicide every 80 minutes of every single day. It's a tremendous problem in our society. And so what we're doing at this particular veteran-civilian dialogue is we're focusing on the impact of suicides on family members, on communities, and we're giving an opportunity for both veterans and civilians to talk about this issue within the context of a structured kind of interactive conversation which we have in these dialogues.
That's amazing, because when I think most civilians, I'm a civilian, when you think about what veterans have done and they come back and you want to say thank you for your service and let me buy you lunch, and after that what do you say? And they don't, these are not the type of people I think that would normally ask for help, because they're sort of trained to be tough.
And sometimes asking for help is kind of a stigma.
Yes.
And so what we're really clear about with these dialogues that we have is that this is not with all due respect, Dr. Fritz, this is not a psychological or a therapeutic model. Rather, we're looking for social healing. How do we build bridges across divides? How do we heal one another? And just by opening the conversation, we begin to spark that kind of dialogue that leads to healing, and then we leave it to the professionals to take it from there.
But actually, you're doing a great job by beginning that dialogue, because in therapy, it's about dialogue. It's about giving people the opportunity to share their stories and have an empathic and understanding ear. So you're actually doing the applied psychology already.
There we go.
There we go. So thanks a lot for what you do. We're going to be right back in a few moments. This is the Dr. Fritz Show, Part 3 of the Emblem Health series on family caregiving. Our special guest tonight, Catherine Thurston and Reverend Robert Chase. We'll be right back in a few moments to continue the conversation.
WWR 1600 Talk. That's changing New York.
Welcome back. This is Dr. Fritz Collette, and again, we are coming to you live from the studios of WWRL here in New York City. This is the second half of an hour here where we're focusing on family caregiving. And in the studio with me, along with Melissa Nicoletti, my co-host, is Catherine Thurston and Reverend Robert Chase, and we're talking about family caregiving. Where would you guys like to jump back into it?
Well, we were kind of making the connection between Hurricane Sandy, the aftermath, and how it made everybody in New York,
we're all caregivers,
part
now
of a family. You'll hear it echoed in the outer boroughs. Don't worry, we'll rebuild. We got this. You know, it's a real sense of team building. Even that if there was some New York pride, I think it was in existence. It was in existence prior, but now you see a whole lot of that, and a whole lot of we take care of our own here.
And this is a period again where a lot of us are jumping into the helping aspect of it. One of my concerns long term,
right,
are the long term psychological effects, and there's a kind of PTSD, that post-traumatic stress that we'll be experiencing.
What happens when you put 5 of your relatives that you've decided deliberately not to live with, suddenly they're living in your house?
And what happens when you come home and your home isn't there after a storm?
Absolutely.
So we know a lot of people are out there who are experiencing that. We have been putting out calls to people to call into the show and tell us if they need something, also to tell us if they have any connections that we can connect listeners to. And we do have a caller on the line. We have Bill. And Bill, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, Bill, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm all right. Actually, I'm remote now. I had an accidental vacation, so I'm in Florida, but I just left this morning from all the snow that happened right after all the storm that happened last week.
Boo, snow.
Now, where do you live?
I live in Dumont in Bergen County.
Oh, okay.
So we had no power, off the power lines from 6:30 when the storm hit that night all the way to it was Sunday. But thank God I had a generator. I had an 82-year-old father-in-law, and when you just drive around, and he had no idea how bad it was out there. And when you drive around, I said, Dad, you don't understand. There's
absolute
trees.
devastation
we
out there.
We have power.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we have a generator, and there's so much devastation. And it's hard for some people to just even think how bad it is because it's always on TV. And when it's personal, like our church is actually, this is why I was calling in, was we got involved with Franklin Graham's Samaritan's Purse. My pastor had called the director to come up, and they're actually at 3 trucks.
You said Samaritan's Purse.
Yep.
And what is that?
Is Franklin Graham is Billy Grimm's. It's a nonprofit international disaster relief. There's no funds or anything. It's all private by donations, what have you.
Hey, Bill, you think your connection to you isn't that great? Can you hang up and give us back a call? We'll get you back in here.
Good.
Looks like we're having a little trouble with Bill's connection, but definitely, Bill, give us a call. Looks like he was going to give us some information about some disaster relief efforts that may be happening in his area. So let's jump back into the conversation. We still have on the line Catherine Thurston, who is the Senior Director at SAGE. And Catherine, I had a question for you. You mentioned before that part of what the organization does is some homebound psychotherapy. Was that correct?
I was actually talking about my previous job.
Okay.
Which does have, as I said, a staff of professional social workers.
Okay.
And we see we provide case management and benefits and entitlements assistance, but we also provide supportive counseling, and that can be in the home. And it can be in our offices. And we also have the nation's oldest, actually, friendly visitor program that's specifically LGBT. It's a terrific program which matches volunteers with what we call friends at home, who are generally frailer and more homebound LGBT older adults. And that friend at home visits the homebound client every week for a couple of hours. We've had relationships in this program that have lasted 5, 6, 7 years. And sometimes, because of the nature of an older LGBT person's family unit, the friendly visitor becomes their caregiver. And we work with those friendly visitors to provide support and assistance and some education, because they often become sort of like the de facto family member, psychotherapist, errand person, all of the things rolled into one. In other words, a caregiver, a true caregiver.
And how long does that relationship last? How long do you end up taking care of people?
Generally, the relationship can last from the introduction until the death of the client. So like I said, we've had relationships, one-on-one relationships between volunteers and the friends at home that have lasted 5 or 6 years. They're really, I always say that if you want to really get to the heart of SAGE, you come to a friendly visitor meeting, because it's really unbelievable to meet these volunteers who give up a lot of their lives. And get extremely involved, sometimes too involved in the lives of the LGBT older person.
Well, that's a really interesting point, and we were talking about that with Greg Johnson from Emblem Health. We were talking about what happens when that's your identity, when your role is the family caregiver and you are taking care of a veteran, someone who's got a very unique experience, comes back from war, damaged, injured, traumatized, not quite whole, you are the caregiver, or someone LGBT elder and you are a visitor at home and that person passes or is no longer available to you. As a caregiver, what happens to you? How do we help these people?
One of the things I think we have to realize in that kind of a situation is that there's a tremendous loss on the part of the person when they are cut off from the one they're caring for. And so that they have then a sense, almost a post-traumatic stress kind of situation, and they have needs, and those needs it's important that those needs get filled by others around them. And so these networks that we create, whether they're organizational, whether they're in neighborhoods, whether they're in extended families, are very important in terms of keeping a kind of stability in the caregiver as well as the person who's being cared for. And just to come back to something that Fritz said earlier about the concern that you have after the headlines fade, and what about the victims of Hurricane Sandy over the long haul. A lot of the people that we deal with at our Veteran Civilian Dialogues are Vietnam vets, and they've been carrying around a kind of a post-traumatic stress with them for sometimes 50 years. We had a person at one of our dialogues get up and say, I've been a veteran for 40 years, but I've only been a civilian for the last 2 years since I've been coming to these veteran-civilian dialogues. Other people who have told their stories for the first time, carrying them, and there's really poignant, powerful stories about the trauma that they had in war in Vietnam, and they're just telling those stories now. So when we think about Hurricane Sandy, and we think about the great work that Catherine's doing in an sometimes isolated LGBT community, especially with older people, it's really important that we understand that some of these psychological needs are really long-term, and it's important for us to build systems that can care for people over that long haul.
But I know that when people think about family caregivers and, I'm going to be taking care of my mother and, she's always loved me, or I'm going to be taking care of this relative, and you think it's going to be this happy, wonderful time, and you get a reality dose of, hey, this person is sick, or this person really needs more than I can give. Again,
the hours are long.
Right.
The work
theme
is hard.
I think of the theme of this whole series is that the family caregiver is not alone, and what we're trying to do is build a framework for people. If you are caring for someone who has a lot of special needs,
we know this work is hard.
Yes, we know this work is hard, and you are not alone.
It places a physical strain on you, places an emotional strain
and
on you.
And all of these groups, Sage, Intersections International, these are all groups designed to help you bridge that gap. Right. Wouldn't you say?
And it's okay to be angry, and it's okay to be fearful, and it's okay to be scared.
Greg often calls it when strangling is not an option. I wanted to say that the whole show.
And that's true. And then what do you do? And sometimes you feel so isolated, like you're the only one who has these feelings. And this mom that you've loved, or this husband that you've had who you've loved who comes back from war, and you're angry at them, and you know that they're hurting, and you're still angry, and you're still feeling your own needs, and you're feeling guilty.
Mad.
That's right.
Sure.
And so you need the support of others to be able to cope and to be able to be all the caregiver you can be, to use a military kind of slogan.
So if you're just tuning in, again, live show here, 212-868-0975, 212-868-0975. If you're listening, if you're a family caregiver, if you know one, maybe we can also direct some of this conversation into how people can access the services that are being talked about here.
Call to action.
Call to action.
Yep.
You can give us a call, 212-868-0975. We already have some callers on the line. Who are we taking first? All right, let's take number 10. We have Danielle. Danielle, are you there?
Yes, hello.
Hello, Danielle.
Hi, Danielle.
Hello, everyone. I wanted to call in with a question, and I first want to say that I think it's really wonderful, that this episode has come out. I think it's so timely, and it's great that you're creating a dialogue around, not only veterans, but tying it to, what's been happening with Sandy, and it has been traumatic. I've had power the entire time, gratefully, and, I've had a full house of people staying with me, since the storm hit, people who have no home right now, and they're not going to have a home, and I had a good situation. I still burst into tears and have gone through the gamut of emotions. So, I wanted to ask a question, especially with a caregiver, or someone who is receiving care. It's wonderful that you're talking about these services. How do you broach the subject of someone needing therapy, someone needing help? Because I think particularly with certain generations, it's not that accepted.
You're the professionals. I would think sneak it on them, but I want you to meet my friend. Wink, wink.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with when you're listening to the person's story, when you're hearing what they have to say. And in there may be an opportunity for you to suggest that they, not just get help, but maybe they could use some assistance, or how do they feel after that? And therapy, working with somebody professionally, gives them an opportunity to do that. But
what Danielle's saying is, what do you do when someone says, "I don't need therapy," or "I don't need to talk to somebody. I could just talk to you"?
No one ever says that to me.
No, I know, but all right. People,
yes, they do actually.
People have said it to me. Oh, I could just talk to you, and I have to. This is above my pay grade.
Yeah, but the main thing that's different is when you're talking to a family member,
right?
About what's going on with you, or for the most part, people don't know what to do with it. They don't know what to say.
And I would argue that in many ways, just having the conversation, just hearing that person's story, just using some attentive listening so that you're really hearing the person who's either in your family or in your community is so important. It's an important first step, because that often just unlocks or is the key that unlocks the kind of vault
For the process.
that keeps people locked up.
Right.
And if you just take the time, and that's why family caregiving is so important, because very often you
Who
are
else
the
is
one.
gonna listen
that's
to
right.
you but
You're the
your-
one in
your
closest
family?
proximity to the
Right.
person in need. So take the time to have the conversation. That's a first step.
And one of the most powerful tools in my arsenal, I'll give it away now, is the ability to listen, which means keeping your mouth shut and
Oops.
listening, letting the person finish. Not finishing their thoughts or their feelings for them, but letting them tell their whole story, not making it about yourself. And I can definitely commend you, because it sounds like that's what you're doing. You're like the applied psychologist out there doing it already.
Right. Our role, we see, is to create the safe container in which those conversations can happen between individuals.
And that's exactly what we try to create in a therapeutic setting.
Exactly.
Rock
That's
on.
wonderful.
Fist pump
Thank
going
you.
on in here in the studio. I'll give you a visual. So if you're just tuning in, you want to join in the conversation, 212-868-0975, 212-868-0975. Are you a family caregiver? Are you taking care of someone and you need some support? We're talking with some people here that have a lot of information and organizations that could potentially help you, 212-868-0975. We got another caller on line number 2. We have Bill. You got a better connection, Bill?
I hope so. I should now.
That
How's
sounds
sound?
very nice.
All right.
So you were starting to tell us about, were you trying to connect us to something?
Yeah, what it is there's a free relief source in the New Jersey, New York area. It's called Samaritan's Purse. It's run locally through my church in Teterboro. What Samaritan's Purse is, it's Franklin Graham, who's the son of, everybody knows who Billy Graham is. It's an international disaster relief. The 53-foot trailer is based out of my place. They call it a lighthouse. And we send out 2 crews every day. You can do a half-day volunteer work, and we're focused on Moonachie and Little Ferry. And, it's hard for some people to step over the boundary. You guys are talking about caregivers. It's hard to step over the boundary of, I've never done this before. What if I do something wrong? What if I, don't know what to say? And like you guys are saying, these people some of them need somebody to talk to.
Someone to listen to them.
And with the trailer park that is behind Teterboro Airport, these people, there's a 91-year-old woman in there. There's a single mom, who outran the water coming at them, because when Moonachie went, it was horrible. They just need people to talk, because they need to know that people care. Like you guys are talking about how when people are isolated, you think it's only you that feels this way. I'm the only one who doesn't know how to take care of my father. Or, and what you were talking about with being a caregiver for an elder, but being able to be there for these people, to rip out the nasty sheetrock was what we were doing for 2 days. And it's no big deal for anybody who really just jumps over the wall and does it. But if you're a homeowner and your whole home had, like the houses we were in, had 4 or 5 foot of water in the basement, you're looking at that going, I'm never going to get this done. And praise God that this thing, it's a free organization. We just showed up with like 30 people, and in like 3 hours we totally gutted the basement of their house. And they come back in, they're like, "Thank you so much." And then we spend time, we pray with them, encourage them, but we don't leave it. Like that's the other thing. People just do something and walk out. We have somebody still in contact. Hey, you know what? Our church is in Teterboro. Come on over. We care about you. We try to be an outreaching church. And, this is just a really good way to do it. And one of the other locations they have is in Nassau County, and the other one's down in Linwood, which is down the, by the Toms River area in Monmouth Ocean County.
Okay.
So there's 3 of these trucks. And what we're doing is we're just supporting anybody who needs any help. And if anybody needs anything, you can just go to the website. It's SamaritansPurse.org.
Great.
And just ask to schedule for a work order. Or you can even call my church. It's njvine.org is the name of the website. It's the North Jersey Vineyard, and ask to set up an appointment with for a work order, and they will send a crew out there. They're here for the next 3 weeks.
Wow, that's great.
Now, Bill, do you have access to the internet right now?
Yeah, yes, I do.
Okay, and I think can you send me some information, and I'll post it in the show notes, and we'll get it on our site as soon as possible. I want to thank you for calling in.
No, thanks a lot, man. Glad to help out, and like I said, the scary thing is for people to jump over that hump of helping, but when you jump, it's so easy. People are afraid of breaking their what's the name barriers, their comfort zone.
Comfort zone.
I actually posted on Facebook. There's no comfort zone. It's so easy to do. You just step out and go, I have to do
it. It actually is the new comfort zone. What I really like about what you're talking about, Bill, is when these things happen, there's a banding together, a creation of a community, people getting together to do something, a partnership.
Mm-hmm.
A partnership.
Absolutely. A partnership.
Because your upper class, upper middle class people are not really ever going to, honestly, they're not going to go to a trailer park where they're shut-ins. Right. And when you go into these people, they feel loved right away. And you know what? That may just make their day that much better while they're going through all this. So I'll let you guys go.
Thank you, Bill. And we'll get your information up there. Thank you for calling in.
Yep, bye.
Intersections is a multi-faith organization, and one of the things that's underway right now in the city is that there are a series of meetings among other multi-faith organizations. The mayor's office is actually hosting a conference call tomorrow among some interfaith leaders so that there can be this faith-based perspective. Because one of the things that people need at this time is not only the physical kind of presence, but the kind of emotional presence that comes from a spiritual community, whatever your faith perspective might be. And so that's really important. And the partnership that I think Emblem Health has fostered here is one that is multifaceted, is one that takes into account a variety of different living perspectives, faith perspectives, races, gender, orientation, the whole range of the human mosaic that we see here in New York City. And Emblem Health has kind of brought together organizations that can provide a kind of a full range of services to folks to support those who are caregivers, and so we can all be in this human network together. It's a fascinating and wonderful thing. That's something, a silver lining to this real tragedy that the storm has brought.
Yes, and I think, Catherine, wouldn't you say that being able to reach out and help people, being able to find them, being able to serve the community in a way that maybe somebody else couldn't, being a caregiver, gives the caregiver such a unique gift?
Oh, absolutely. I was going to comment on what was just said, and that one of the things that's so remarkable about this collaboration and this partnership is, while we do represent, I think, the breadth of the wonderful New York community in terms of all of our agencies, when we get together and talk about the work we do, there are so many similarities. But one of the things I was thinking about as I'm listening tonight is something that SAGE has planned for and thinks a lot about in terms of our caregiving programs is the fact that caregivers so often only reach out for help when they're in the midst of a crisis. And an event like Hurricane Sandy, which really throws sharp relief on how crisis motivates us to work and think in different ways, really brings home the fact that for caregivers, it's really our responsibility to start planning and thinking about what we need in times of calm. Because it's human nature to reach out for help when you're frantic and frenzied, but the more plans and the more we think about strategically what we need to do for the people we love when we're not in basically freaking out, the better those plans will be. In fact, the SAGE's caregiving program is called SAGE-CAP, which stands for Caring and Preparing.
Ooh.
Because it's not just about caring for the people you love, but it's also about preparing for your own aging future. Right? I don't think any of us really want to think about that we ourselves one day are going to need the very same help that we give our parents. And that certainly in the LGBT community, if you are a younger LGBT person caring for your parents, you recognize that you and your partner may not necessarily receive all of the benefits that your parents receive. And how do you prepare yourself for a future that could look very different when you need care? So this is a great time for us to think about how we pull together when times are difficult and when things are emergent, but it's also really important for caregivers because I think, Dr. Fritz, you would agree, this kind of inconsistency and up and down that a caregiver goes through is really so much of the emotional exhaustion. Just not having, a day-to-day that feels the same every day.
It's incredibly variable, and I like your point, too, that many of the caregivers go through all of this in silent and only reach out when it's absolute crisis. And the idea of actually planning and thinking about this before we're in crisis and reaching out to people, and even what this series is about, is giving people information that they can use and plan for going forward. All of us at some point in time are going to be in this cycle. We're in this cycle.
Right.
Yes.
We were cared for when we came into this life, and we're going to go out needing care and everything in between.
And we will put the New York City Partnership for Family Caregivers Core information in our show notes. When if you only tuned in just now and got part of it, if you want some of the special resources we've been talking about for family caregivers, if you want more information about SAGE, if you want more information about Intersections International, both of these groups do a lot of LGBT work, LGBT elders work, and work reaching out to veterans and their caregivers. This will all be in the show notes on our podcast at thedrfritzshow.com. You're not going to miss anything.
And it's important to know that all of the guests that we have in this series, and it's a 7-part series, all of the guests that we have are part of that core. They're part of a group of people that are part of organizations that are dealing with this issue from all the angles, the spiritual, the mind, the body, the physical. And so we're going to have yet another episode in a few weeks. It'll be part 4. Do we know what that one is about yet?
The Thanksgiving episode.
The Thanksgiving episode,
yes,
that's right.
We'll be talking about maintaining the spiritual. It's like a 3-legged stool. You want to be able to sit down comfortably.
Absolutely.
You can't just have the physical and the emotional. You need the spiritual.
Absolutely. So that's all we have time for tonight. But, of course, the internet and our lines will be open again next week at 10 p.m. If you want to find out more information about this program, go to thedrfritzshow.com. You can also send me an email at askdrfritz@gmail.com, and we'll be back next week at 10.